So despite dire predictions and the harsh reality of another downgrade, the rand has bounced back. At the close of the local market, the currency was stronger than it was on Friday before two major rating agencies released scheduled assessments. It was at its strongest level in more than a month, trading at around 13.75 to the dollar. Now, S&P downgraded South Africa's local currency rating to junk. This is significant because it was feared that downgrades to the local currency rating could see South African bonds, which are mostly denominated in rand and used by the government to raise debt, falling off international platforms, which could lead to massive outflows of investment. But South Africa was spared the worst because Moody's, another agency, kept the country's sovereign rating and local currency rating in non-junk or investment territory. Well, the rand initially fell by around 2% against the dollar after S&P's move, but it since staged a relief rally and gained against a weaker dollar today. That's partly because Moody's has placed the country on review for a possible downgrade after two key events. So it's waiting, and those events are the ANC elective conference next month and the budget to be delivered in February next year. Investors may also be heartened that reports that plans for free education may now be delayed or may be implemented in stages. The plans caused jitters because South Africa has already increased its debt burden to pay for other priorities at a time when growth is slow, and that affects the revenue coming in. Rating agencies rate a country's ability to repay loans, and they are concerned that these two factors, combined with uncertainty around politics and leadership, have put South Africa in a more vulnerable position. To discuss, we're joined by Zuzana Brixiova, who's Moody's Vice President involved with South African assessments. Thank you for being with us. Zuzana, it feels to us like a stay of execution in a sense. Does it feel like that to you?
We had a rating action on South Africa last week where we put a rating on review for downgrade, and the reason for that was that some of the underlying strengths have deteriorated beyond our expectations. I mean, even though we had recent rating action in June where we assigned negative outlook, even with that outlook we saw some additional pressures. And they were along the three dimensions of our rating, which is fiscal strength, growth prospects, and institutional strength.
It sounds like you're concerned things have deteriorated, like you say, but you will wait now for the ANC conference and for next year's budget. Is that correct? So you're not going to pronounce on South Africa until you know how that budget will be handled?
Well, again, you know, the fiscal policy is a very important factor in our rating, and one area that characterizes South Africa rating is now policy uncertainty. And of course, the ANC elections and also the budget are important documents in this area that can provide more clarity on likely policy direction of South Africa for the next few years.
Zuzana, Cyril Ramaphosa, our Deputy President, often seen as more business-friendly. Does that make a difference who emerges as the leader of the ANC in December? In our rating, you know, we don't assess any particular candidates. What we really look at is policy direction, and again, that will become more apparent after the elections. What are the policies towards growth? What is the stance on structural reforms? And of course, the fiscal stance as well. In the interim now, it is significant that you, unlike S&P and Fitch, have not put us on junk across those different ratings, and you're talking about the things that concern you, growth and debt. What would you like to see happening in December, in February next year? What would you like to hear from our government? Well, again, we don't particularly, you know, we don't like to see anything, but what we do in the rating is that we assess the measures and the developments that the country undertakes. And probably, you know, the deteriorating trend was along the lines of pressure on South Africa institutions, including a mandate of SARP. That was one of the aspects of our putting the rating on review for downgrade.
And also the lack of policy direction in the recent medium-term policy statement, which very well outlined, I must say, the challenges that South Africa is facing, but it will also be important now to see, what the response will be if the government undertakes some important measures to stabilize the debt to GDP ratio and maybe reverse, and also what will be done with the state-owned enterprises, which, the contingent liabilities continue to accumulate. They have more than doubled. Eskom alone is now around 7% of GDP, which is quite high. So it's not only the total size, but the concentration of the portfolio, and also deterioration of quality of that portfolio of state-owned enterprises.
So SOEs, SARS, our institutions, what about the possibility of free education for all? Presumably that would be negative for our rating.
Well, again, from long-term point of view and the impact on growth, it has been recognized that skill shortages are one of the bottlenecks. So from that point of view, this is a. Of course, it depends how that reform of higher education is carried out and what the incentives are. But in principle, this could be helping along the line of skills. But the flip side of that is affordability. And of course, currently, the South African fiscal position is already facing major gaps. So whatever is taken along other expenditures, it will depend whether it's fiscally neutral and what the sources of funding are.
Zuzana, finally, we are happy that Moody's has decided to keep us in investment grade across those ratings for now, but you're the odd one out compared to Fitch and S&P. Does that lead to any pressure?
Well, we have our own methodology and we have our own way of looking at South Africa's credit quality, and important aspect from our perspective are also peers. So we compare South Africa to peers in the BA1 category, for example, Namibia, which was recently downgraded, where, the decisions were already taken in the fiscal areas, or at the same time, Hungary, which is BAA3 and was about a year ago upgraded from BA1. And a lot depends also how South Africa compares to those peers.
All right, thank you so much. Zuzana Brixiova, from Moody's on the line for us. She's involved in assessing South Africa's rating, and of course Moody's, the only one now who does not has not put us in junk status when it comes to our sovereign rating, affecting foreign currency bonds, and our local currency rating, affecting bonds denominated in rand.